So you being accountable is not taking away the other person's role in whatever happened. It's you saying, you know what? I'm going to do everything that I can for me. I'm going to own whatever it is that I can own from that situation so that I can be the person who sees what needs to be done and makes the necessary changes.
This is the Joy Act, where finding joy beyond divorce begins with your understanding that the depth of your heartache shows the depth of your capacity for joy. I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour, and together we'll use accountability, alignment, communication, and trust to transform your journey. It's time to step into the Joy Act.
Hello, hello, hello. Good day to you. Thank you for joining me here. I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour, accredited breakup and divorce coach. And this is another episode of the Joy Act, and that's A.A.C.T. And today I'm actually going to be talking about the first A in ACT, and that's accountability. So ACT, A-A-C-T, stands for accountability, alignment, communication, and trust. And this episode and the next couple of episodes, I'm going to be breaking down what ACT actually means, what it looks like, and maybe even sharing some examples of what that looks like for me or for people that I've talked to, because I'm always getting stuff on the internet. And when I get it, I bring it into this framework, my proprietary framework, to see how can I help somebody process this. So accountability is the first part of this framework because for me, I believe it is the pathway to empowerment. I think it is the gateway to empowerment for this process. Now, one of the things that I have gotten from people, especially I work primarily with women. So if you're a man watching this, I'm not excluding you. Pretty much talk to women because that's my most of my clients. That's where most of my clients are. But if it applies, right? So you'll hear me say when I talk to women, so I'm not excluding you necessarily, but that's the language that you're going to hear me using. When I talk to women, one of the things that I hear a lot is, but it wasn't my fault. Now, you know what? I'm not even going to do that. Yeah, men say the same thing. Men say the same thing. So if you are the person who feels like you were wronged, you were slighted, your ex or your partner who you're separated from right now was the person who lied or cheated or did you dirty or wanted this breakup when you thought everything was fine, whatever your story is, I want you to imagine this because what I often hear at this point is, but I didn't do anything wrong. So why am I the one who has to be accountable? Hold that thought. Just put a pin right there and work with me on this. Stay with me on this. I want you to imagine, let's just say that your partner, the other person is responsible for 99% of what went wrong. Like whatever it is, we're going to give them 99% and you only have like 1%. So I want you to think about that and go, okay, I can deal with 1%. As long as we know that they're 99% wrong, I'll deal with the 1%. So hold on to that 1% because this is what I want you to do with that 1% so that you can bust yourself later. You need to be accountable and take responsibility for 100% of that 1% you're holding on to right now. Yeah, I know I kind of tricked you, right? But I want you to think about that. And the reason this is so important, see, as we go on, you may go, okay, I'll take 5%. I might even take 10. The reason this is so important is because the accountability is where your power lies. The accountability is where your power lies. This is all about empowerment. It's all about you positioning yourself to be empowered. And if we don't have any responsibility, if we don't take accountability for anything, and it's not only all their fault, and we're going to put 100% of the blame on them, then there's nothing for us to do that makes us feel strong enough to say, I'm going to take my power back. So, I always do this disclaimer because I don't post in here, oh, but I was abused and that doesn't, no, abuse does not count. Abuse is the abuser's fault. There is never any reason that someone should accept being abused or to be blame themselves for being abused or take accountability for being abused. I will say this. There's a book that I really like. Byron Katie is the author, and it's called, oh my gosh, hold on. It is called, I could get it off my shelf. It'd be so much easier. Hold on. Hold on. Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And she walks you through a process of ownership, accountability, being responsible that some people have a hard time with because she uses that train of thought and her coaching process. No matter what the scenario is, she brings it back to, okay, but what could you have done? Or what can you do now? Right. And so I want you to think about where you are now and what you can do. Sometimes we have to work from where we are and start finding our power and our strength in this space before we can actually go back and think about what we lived through and can go, you know what? The abuse was not my fault. The abuse was not my fault. I do see where I could have made different decisions. And I now understand why I didn't make those decisions. You see what I did there? So it's never about blaming yourself for being in an abusive situation, but it is okay for you. Well, and I don't want to say but, and it is okay for you to look back at that situation and see where you had other options. You're able to see those options now, but you weren't able to see them when you were in the situation. So you don't get to go back and beat yourself up for not seeing something that wasn't visible to you then, right? You understand what I'm saying? So, but this is not about abuse, even though I do work with people, my training, my education does include working with people who are in abusive or toxic relationships. I want you to think about this from the place of where am I now and how do I take accountability for where I am now to get me to where I want to be. So, we're going to talk about that and I'm going to take you through the steps of accountability. There are four components to accountability. The four components, the first thing we're going to do is assess it. We're going to act with intention. We're going to cultivate a growth mindset. So, assess, act with intention, cultivate a growth mindset, and then we are going to track progress and celebrate. I had to put those two together because I really want you to find I want you to find things as you're going through your process of healing and growing and transforming. I always want you to think about how can I find the joy in this? How can I celebrate this? How can I take a moment and acknowledge how far I've already come? Even if the distance is only one step, celebrate that one step, right? So when you're working, don't let it just be about doing the work. Let the work include fun, pleasure, happy stuff, things that make you smile, bring you some joy. So let's talk about assess. I got my note here. We're going to start with assessing. Assessing is not about beating yourself up. There's never anything good that's going to come from you just being emotionally dragging yourself through the mud. So assessing is about taking a look and an honest reflection of what you've come through and where you are today. So you want to be really honest. Just imagine that you're taking inventory of a store, but instead of counting products, you're examining your options and the decisions that you made and the actions that you've taken so that you can finally start putting puzzle pieces together. Because one of the questions I find people ask themselves a lot coming through difficult relationships is why did I put up with this? What did I do wrong? Why couldn't I have done blah, 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 whatever that is for you. And so I want you can write this down because this is a powerful exercise for you to be able to look back on it. And like I said, sometimes you need to have a little more distance between the relationship ending before you get to this place. So if this is not comfortable, if it's bringing up things that you're just not able to deal with yet, then maybe you need to sit this part down and come back to accountability at another time, or just come back to assessing this part at another time. But for now, I want to walk you through it. What makes assessment so powerful is that it helps you understand the choices that you made, the decisions that you made. And your goal is to not punish yourself for making them. Don't punish yourself for making them. It's not for you to go back and judge your decisions because you've already made them. It's for you to understand them. And sometimes it may be difficult for you to do that because you don't like the answer you come up with. So it could be something like, why did I stay? I stayed because I was too scared to leave. And I was scared to leave because I was being abused. Or I stayed because I had children and I didn't know what to do with the children. Or I stayed because the only person available for me to go live with was just so negative that I didn't even want to go live with them, to be with them, even if it meant getting myself out of that situation. I stayed for the money. I stayed because it was comfortable. I stayed because I didn't want to be embarrassed when everybody at church found out that our perfect looking marriage really wasn't perfect. Don't judge your reasons. Be honest with yourself and know that you're strong enough to deal with those reasons now, right? The other good thing about doing the assessment is it helps you recognize patterns in your decision making. So maybe you just ended one relationship, but now if you go back to the last two or three relationships, maybe you'll see some dots. Don't judge it. This is not for you to analyze. Right now, you're being an observer in your life.
You've built a successful career, checked all the right boxes, but after divorce, why does it feel like everything is falling apart? Searching for answers online at 2 a.m., it will not bring you peace. Neither will pretending you're fine when inside you're anything but. I remember those feelings, the exhaustion, the anxiety, and the frustration from feeling stuck. It seemed like no matter what I did, I could not figure out a way to move past the pain. If you are dealing with a divorce while you're also managing your career, I've been there. Things didn't get better for me until I stopped waiting for time to heal me and I took control of my own healing. And that's how this came about. That's why I designed the 4 essential steps to creating joy after a difficult divorce. It's time to break the cycle. Imagine waking up feeling lighter, knowing exactly what to do next, and rediscovering your joy, not just surviving, but thriving. In this masterclass, you'll learn the biggest mistakes that keep you stuck in divorce pain, why traditional recovery methods don't always work for high-achieving women, and the 4 essential steps to rebuilding your confidence and joy. Give yourself permission to stop reliving the past and start designing the future you deserve. Register today.
So write these things down. Get a journal and write these things down. During the assessment, will give you clarity about what you might want to do differently moving forward. So if you do see some patterns that weren't beneficial to you, that weren't healthy, whatever, however you look at them, they're things that you don't want to repeat. You now maybe can see those things, and now you can put a note there and go, this is something I need to work on. I'm seeing a pattern in how I am behaving or responding to certain things, or I'm looking for a certain type of person that isn't good for me. And now I see I've done this 3 times, whatever it is. So you can see those patterns. If you're working with somebody like me who is a coach, or if you have a therapist or a counselor, sometimes it could be a really good friend or a close family member who really loves you enough to be honest without being brutal. And they may help you go, yeah, I noticed that too. So the assessing process is really good. I was just talking to somebody a week or so ago about this, and I'll probably go into a little bit more of this in Patreon. But we were talking about patterns, and it was a guy, and he shared with me that he realized he had a pattern that he wasn't proud of that had happened a few times during the course of his marriage, and he was still trying to process why. And he was starting to come up with some reasons as to why that behavior was happening for him. And one of the things I shared with him was we both grew up with our biological fathers not being around. They weren't the father who raised us. We were both raised by stepfathers. And even having a stepfather around, there's that sense of, but my dad isn't here. And I talked to one of my sisters about this. We're stepsisters, so we have different parents, but it's sometimes weird. We've been together so long that I actually forget that we had different parental experiences growing up, even though we became very close. And I was raised by her father. She was not raised by her father. She didn't live with us that long. When you have these kinds of experiences, you can still have some emotional trauma or an emotional experience that's not good for you as a result of missing that other parent. And the gentleman that I was talking to, it was his therapist who actually pointed it out to him. And he said, you were abandoned by your dad. He used the word abandoned. And we both were like, ooh, never really put it in terms of abandonment. But one of the things that I noticed years ago was that I was attracted to men who were emotionally unavailable. And that was a pattern that I was able to see. And so that could look like aloofness. It just looked familiar to me. And I think part of the reason it was familiar to me is because my biological father wasn't there. So somebody not seeming that they were connecting didn't seem that odd because I didn't have that connection because of the physical absence. And so when I was even in a relationship, not having that emotional connection didn't strike me as odd. It just meant I needed to love harder. I needed to, just be there for them, or, time will change this, whatever the reason. But it was a powerful moment for me to realize that. So think about the connecting those dots when you're assessing. Just ask yourself the question, what do I see when I look at this now? What am I experiencing right now that feels good or doesn't feel good? When I look at this relationship that I'm in or the one I've just gotten out of, what are some of the things that worked for me and that didn't work for me? And how can I take accountability for anything? Can I take accountability for anything that happened? And if I can, what might that look like? So it's almost like you play this game where you go, if I could go back and do it again, what would I do differently? And it's okay if you come up with, I wouldn't be with that person, or I would be with that person, but I would have made my desires known. I would have spoken up for myself differently. Figure out whatever it is for you. Write those things down and hold on to them. So, the second component of accountability after assessing your situation is to act with intention, do things on purpose. Think of yourself as the captain of a boat. And my dad had a sailboat, and he used to say, sailboats are like planes. You don't set a course and travel in this straight line. Sailboats are always being taken off course by the winds or the water. And a captain's job is to continuously, just like a pilot, is to continuously put that vessel back on the course that you've laid out for it. So you've got to be paying attention, or it could just continue to veer off course. So the key to that is being able to pay attention and being intentional about where it is you want to go. That doesn't mean you lock yourself into a destination and no matter what, you don't change it, because part of being responsible is also knowing when it's time to change course, when it's time to go in a different direction. So, if you're sailing into a storm because your destination is on the other side of it, it might make sense for you to pull into a dock somewhere or port somewhere and get and set anchor and go finish your journey tomorrow. You may have to get off of that course completely until the storm passes. So pay attention, because you always want to be responsible. You always want to maintain as much accountability to yourself as you possibly can. But in this acting with intention, you want to, like I said, you set that destination to that desired location. Keep your objectives in mind. Why are you doing it? Why is it important for you to get to that destination? Because that's the thing that's going to fuel you. But again, be flexible in how you approach it. Be flexible in how you approach it. You may need to delay it. You may need to pause it. You may need to take a detour in order to get there. But the goal is set your intention so you're not just kind of floating around in the ocean. You're not just sitting out there in your boat in a dinghy with no anchor, just hoping the current takes you to the place that you think you want to go. So be intentional. And this could be challenging for some people, especially if you're coming out of a relationship where you weren't involved in a lot of the major decision making or any of the decision making. And that's just a muscle that you're not used to using. So show yourself some grace, because you're going to need it, and get the support that you're going to need when you're going to need it. I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode, so I really hope now I don't get interrupted, but I'm going to keep this going. So we did assess, we did act with intention. The third one is cultivate a growth mindset. I love this one. So psychologist Carol Dweck talks about this in her book. And the concept of a growth mindset is just so powerful, because it's the difference between having this limiting belief and just having a belief and a faith and an understanding that you can do more, because there's so much out there, that it's an abundant mindset. The growth mindset will help you see challenges as opportunities. So it just helps you reframe how you're looking at things. Instead of it being a problem, it's an opportunity that you can overcome. I just finished reading Marie Forleo's book, Everything is Figure Outable. That is 100% a growth mindset, that everything is figure outable. Growth mindset also allows you to transform setbacks into learning experiences. So, yeah, you may have to take a step back. I was just talking about acting with intention, and when you have to change course to get to your destination, it might delay you getting to that destination. But even that could be a learning experience because now you know there was another way to get to my destination. That path that I charted wasn't the only way there. If you look at going off course as a failure and it just stops you in your tracks, excuse me, you may never get to your destination because you just give up. But if you can look at as a setback or a change in direction as a learning experience, now you've reframed it and you can do something with it. Growth mindset also helps you build resilience because it tells you that everything may not go the way you thought it was going to go, but that doesn't mean it still can't go well. That you still have an opportunity to turn this into something that can work for you, or something else Marie Forleo talks about is changing your mind. You know, you're not locked in. A growth mindset could mean, okay, I put everything into this that I want. I don't think this is the right thing for me to do anymore. And I'm going to change my mind. And I've decided to go someplace altogether different. And this is why. And as long as you understand why and it makes sense to you, then it's probably the right thing for you to do. Can you check with other people? 100%. Just again, check your patterns. Are you always going to other people for guidance before you make any decisions for yourself? And again, if you've come out of a relationship where that was the norm, you need to train that muscle of you making decisions for yourself and trusting that you can do that and that it's going to be okay. And you may need to start with smaller things just so you get in the habit of saying, okay, what do I want to do? This is what I want to do. These are the options. This is my choice. This is the decision I'm making that's final. And I'm now going to just do it and tell people about it afterwards. Tell people what it looked like afterwards. I'm trying to think. So, an example of something like that might be I know I was at dinner. My sister and April and I were at dinner. This is decades ago. We were at dinner at our grandmother's house, and she was dating a guy who lived in Chicago, and we had moved from Milwaukee. So I still had, so many friends in Wisconsin. And we were at, I think, Thanksgiving dinner. And I said, you know what? I'm driving to Milwaukee this weekend. Do you want to go? And she was like, yeah, you can drop me off in Chicago. And on the spur of the moment, we just made a decision. That's what we were going to do. And did people think we had lost our minds? Yeah, probably. But you know what? When you're in your 20s and you're young and you just think the world is there for you to enjoy, you can make decisions like that and go with it. And it never occurs to you that there's anything wrong with that. And no foul, no harm. Nobody got hurt. So figure out what things you can do where you can start making small decisions for yourself. If decision making is a challenge for you, show yourself grace and figure out what some of the things are that you can just decide that I want to do. Dinner with yourself, a movie by yourself, a weekend getaway by yourself or with a friend, and just plan it out and just go do it and see what happens and enjoy it. Could also be one of your celebrating things. Fourth component, you have assess, you have act with intention, cultivate that growth mindset. And the fourth thing, track your progress and celebrate those successes. So once you start making these decisions and you start looking at, okay, my accountability overall, the things that I've assessed and what have I learned, you can now look and go, you know what? That's something I used to do. And this is language that I got from, I'm going to refer to my books again, Tina Lifford, The Little Book of Big Lies, another one of my favorite reads a couple years ago, but I think I've read it twice. She talks about just celebrating the things in your life that are going well and tracking that progress. And the way she words it is like this. When you find something that you weren't doing well at one point, you want to phrase it so that it sounds like it's in the past. So you say, I used to do XYZ, and now I'm doing this. Or there was a time when I didn't think I could make good decisions for myself. And now I am getting better at that every day. So the way you say things to yourself, when I get into the communication section in a couple of weeks, it is so huge because I started with how we talk to ourselves. That's the first thing. So this is going to get you set up for that. That even when you're tracking your progress, make sure you word it and you think about it in a positive light. I used to not be able to do this, and now I'm making these decisions for myself. There was a time in my life when Lisa Nichols is also good at framing language like that. So think those things, think about that. and think about how you want to celebrate. I use this example. When we were children, or if you have children or you've been around children, the things that we celebrate with children are just, it's ridiculous. Like, when is the last time you went to the bathroom and looked in the toilet and said, yeah, hey, I did, as an adult? No, but if you've been around kids, we have all celebrated a child using the bathroom the right way. As adults, it's like we outgrow this ability to celebrate. And it's not that we don't still probably need a little bit of it. We could probably use a lot more. So I want you to be intentional about tracking and celebrating stuff. And you can start small, find one positive thing that happened today and do that every day. In my book, What Went Well, the What Went Well Journal, it's a gratitude book I call it a gratitude book with a little extra. And in there, it's like, I want you to write, what went well today. And then I also want you to think about what caused it, because I really believe it lets you see the good things that happen in the world and the role that you played in that. And even if you witness it happen to somebody else, it does something to you. So start small, just maybe one positive action a day, or a growth spurt that you know that you've had, something you used to do that you realize you're not doing as often or at all. Make it visible. And what I mean by that is you need to write it down and put it in a journal. You need to put it in an app or put it on your wall calendar, make it visible. I'll give you an example. You can't see it in here. I have a wall behind my desk here, in front of my desk. And every year I put the year on it. And these are the books that I finished reading for that year. So I celebrate the books that I've read. It also lets me go back. Now, I just realized today I did a book on tape while I was running errands, and I came in and it was sounded familiar, but I realized earlier in the year it was like the second book that I listened to this year, and I listened to it again, and that's fine, because I still got something out of it on round two. But make it real by making it tangible. So you need to write it in your journal, put it in an app, put it on those big adhesive notepads that you can hang up on your wall. That's what I have on there. It's something really simple, but do that. Share it with somebody who is supporting you. Share it with somebody who is going to be as excited about it as possible. They may not be as excited as you, so don't necessarily measure them against you, but they're going to be genuinely excited and happy for you. And you know the people who aren't, so don't try to drag them along into your celebration, kicking and screaming. That is not what this is about. That'll just make you feel worse, probably. But celebrate as many tiny wins as you possibly can. And it could be something as simple as a friend of mine gifted me a journal. And she and my sister are so much alike. She gifted me the journal. And then my sister today showed me how walked me through how she uses hers. And I like having checklists. I call them my to done list. People call them to do list, but I call it my to done list. And so just being able to write down what you wanted to accomplish today and checking those things off. Now, let me say this. If you write down 10 things this morning that you wanted to get done, or tomorrow morning that you want to get done, and you get 7 of them done or 3 of them done, I don't want you to lament over the ones you didn't get done. I want you to celebrate the ones that you did get done. The beautiful thing about this journal, the way my sister does it, is the next day I can add things, but I can keep going back to the other days until I get those checked off. So it's never like, oh, too late to check those off. Whenever I get them done, I get to check them off. So it's a small little win, and it's a way that I can celebrate. And celebrating can look any way you want it to. Oh my gosh, here it is. I have this. I'm not going to push it because it'll literally play for 30. Yes, I am. Oh, it's not on.
30-second dance party.
This is my 30-second dance party. So you see the little lights? I will actually get up and dance for 30 seconds. I keep my hula hoops here in my office so that I can get up and do hula hoop, because it's an exercise. It's a way to get my blood circulating, but it's also one of the ways that I celebrate. So some practical things that you can do, 3 things that you can do that you can actually start today or sometime this week. You can start your accountability journal, divide it into 4 parts, and you can do the things that you're assessing, and things that you are acting on intentionally, how you are cultivating a growth mindset. Maybe there are 1 or 2 things specifically that you want to focus on developing this growth mindset. And then you are already in the book tracking them, right? And how are you going to celebrate? So that's something you could put in that fourth page or that fourth quadrant. How are you going to celebrate? And take 5 minutes at the end of each day and go in there and look and see, how did I do today? How did I do today? And if you don't have time to celebrate it that evening, do your celebration the next day. But if you just make sure you document it, you'll be able to celebrate. You can always find a little way to celebrate. This takes 30 seconds. So even if you do it at night after dinner, you can do a little dance. Maybe your celebration is going to be make some homemade popcorn and watch an hour of your favorite show that you don't necessarily watch all the time. It's something that you would like to binge watch, but you don't take time to binge watch. So do an hour, do one episode. Pick those four components, set those small goals for achievement, and practice this for, I would say 1 week just to get in the routine. But really, you want to do this for several weeks. Just get yourself in the habit of doing your accountability for a couple of weeks. I'm going to be talking about alignment in my next episode or one of the next episodes. And so you can listen to that one and continue to practice your accountability routine until you really get comfortable with it, right? Find an accountability partner. What good is accountability without an accountability partner? Find an accountability partner. Again, when you look for an accountability partner, be really clear about what you want and what you don't want. This is a good exercise in decision making for you because you can't go to the person and go, "Do you think you'd be a good accountability partner?" You might be able to do that. And I'll give you an example of that too. I was in a women's business group, a mastermind group, and we were meeting every week. And I got paired up with someone in the group. Great person, but we just kept missing each other. We just were not, it wasn't that we weren't clicking. I think our intention, our acts of intention were just at different places at that time. So I would call, she wasn't available, or she'd forget we were calling, or she'd call me because she missed my call. And so we were like passing ships in the night, just missing, right? And then a couple of months ago, somebody else that I met from that same group, we started calling each other. I think she actually called me just to say, hey. And we have just become accountability partners loosely, organically, but we are pretty consistent that just about every week, one of us is going to make a call, sometimes more than once a week. Doesn't matter what day, it's not the same day. We don't have a schedule. But I absolutely love the fact that this woman is so intentional. She acts with intention. She's got it, she takes accountability. And we have become really good accountability partners. If we call each other, we are going to ask, so what have you done? What are you working on now? What do you want to have happen? And we're encouraging and we're supportive. So when you look for your accountability partner, look for somebody that has certain qualities that you need. If you know you have a tendency to just kind of maybe tomorrow, find somebody that's going to hold your foot to the fire in a nice way, in a loving way. You don't want to be in an accountability relationship that feels abusive. And I'm saying that I'm not trying to say that as a joke, but you don't want to feel like you're being emotionally dragged if you don't do something. At the same time, you do want somebody that is going to challenge you, because if you're not doing it for yourself, you need somebody that's going to help you get there so that you can start doing it for yourself. And a good accountability partner is just wonderful. You want to let them know what your intentions are, what it is that you plan on doing, and tell them how you want to be communicated to. Tell them what works for you and what doesn't. That's a really smart thing to do. And schedule your regular check ins, or at the very least, say, we're going to call once a week and we're going to alternate who calls who. And maybe you're able to set a time. It really is good if you can do a time, but it just so happens that me and my partner have just kind of gotten good at this. So before I end today, I wanted to go through some questions that I hear. How can I practice accountability when I feel like I didn't do anything wrong? And I talked about this early on, but this really is one of the biggest questions that I get. And I want you to remember that accountability is not about fault or blame, it's about empowerment. So you being accountable is not taking away the other person's role in whatever happened. It's you saying, you know what? I'm going to do everything that I can for me. I'm going to own whatever it is that I can own from that situation so that I can be the person who sees what needs to be done and makes the necessary changes. And maybe you get to a point where you go, you know what? What I see is The best thing that I did for myself was to no longer be in that situation anymore. And now you're accountable to you to grow yourself. But what I want you to get out of this, accountability is not taking the blame. It's not your fault. It doesn't mean that other person is absolved, but the other person is not here. This is actually you doing you right now. So focus on what you can control and influence moving forward. And that's what you'll be responsible for. That's your accountability. Another question I get: what if tracking progress feels overwhelming? It's real, right? You think, oh my gosh, she's giving me one more thing I got to try to track or keep up with, and I got to put it in a journal, and I have to look. Start with just one thing. Start with just one thing. Maybe you start tracking your morning routine or noting the positive thought that you're going to have for the day, and you can build from there. So maybe in the morning, you get up and decide, find a quote, a little poem, one word that you're going to focus on for the day that's going to help be the thing that keeps you on track so you can act intentionally. So, what you've just done, if you do that, you've taken accountability to find that positive thing you're going to focus on, and you've made a decision to act intentionally on letting that be your guiding thought for the day. And maybe you pick a thought or a quote and it's the entire week. That way you don't have to change it every morning. Keep this simple. But if you are listening to this and your brain keeps going into you can't, I can't, why, it's too much, it's overwhelming, one, that's not a growth mindset. And cultivating a growth mindset is part of this process. Two, I want you to pay attention and assess this. Realize that maybe you have a tendency to go to the negative. Maybe your inclination up until now, see what I did there? Maybe your inclination up until now is to find that negative thing and feed it. And so now you can have a goal to act intentionally to change that. I have another book for you. I have to look, I always have to look because I want to get the titles right. Hold on here. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. What to say when you talk to yourself. That's another one of my favorite books. What to say when you talk to yourself. I told you I have a list on my wall of all the books I read. I love books because I get so much out of them. And plus, I get to share them with you. So if tracking feels overwhelming or you catch yourself in a whole lot of negative talk when you think about doing something new, something different, I want you to think about getting the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. There is also an app that you can get on your phone that you can listen to different things each day. And I used to do this while I was like putting makeup on in the morning or on my way to the gym in the car when I was driving to the gym or when you're cleaning up around the house. You can listen to this then to help start reprogramming how you talk to yourself. Communication. Here's another question. How do I maintain? This is my last one. How do I maintain accountability when I'm feeling discouraged? And you're going to have days like that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you if you do this, every day is going to be sunshine, unicorns, and cotton candy and rainbows, because I just don't think so. But this is where that growth mindset comes in, is to say to yourself that the discouragement is temporary. This feeling that I'm feeling right now is real, and I need to honor it. And maybe I need to stop doing some things for a minute or two, or the rest of the day, or the weekend. And I need to bubble bath and fuzzy pajamas and good slippers. If you do that, I want you to give yourself a time limit so that you aren't pajamas and fuzzy slippers for the next month, because that means you may have slipped into depression that is lasting too long. And again, ask yourself if this happens, do I go here a lot when things get tough? When I get challenged, has my tendency in the past been to feel discouraged and shut down? And what did that look like? Because if you catch yourself and realize, oh, this is one of my patterns, now you know you're going to have to kind of light a different kind of fire under yourself. And this may be something to share with your accountability partner. And if you really can't resolve this on your own, this is definitely something to talk to your therapist about, or your counselor, or even your coach if you're working with someone, because you may have just found a pattern as to why you have a hard time maintaining your energy. And I'm not talking about something where it's clinical depression, just that you give yourself an out and you take it. And now you're at a place where that's not what you want to do anymore. So you have to figure out what the other options are and what different decisions you're going to make intentionally. So as I wrap up today's show, I want you to think about accountability as taking ownership of your journey. Take ownership of your journey to joy. of your journey through joy, of your journey into joy. It's not about carrying the blame. It's about claiming your power and creating positive change in your life, creating healthy change in your life, creating change that you're going to embrace, that just makes you feel better about how you show up every single day. That is what accountability can do. I really believe it is the doorknob, it is the gate open, it's the gate opening up to that pathway to empowerment for you. So don't be afraid of it. It's nothing to fear. And the anxiety is just you worrying about something that didn't even happen yet. So let's just set all of that aside, open that gate up, and walk into it. So this week, I'm going to challenge you or ask you or have you look in the mirror and tell yourself, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start my accountability journal. I'm going to choose a small action to track, something that you can look at over the next week or a couple of weeks. And you're going to celebrate the wins. You're going to celebrate the wins no matter how small. So next week or the week after that, I'll be going from accountability and talking about alignment. So thank you for being with me this week. And I'll see you in a week. Take care.